Hi everyone, you're listening to No Limits, and today we'll be guessing if there's like a showcase or state of play or something fun coming. So stay tuned to figure it out. Hello again. It's me, Brianna, and you are listening to, again, No Limits, PlayStation Podcast. Remember, you can find us on youtube.com/save the game media and podcast services. This goes up every Tuesday. What else do we want to talk about? If you do want to support and get early access to all of Save the Game Media's content, you can head over to patreon.com/save the game media and choose the tier that works best for you. We have 3 tiers. We have a $1, a $5, and a $10 tier. So check it out. Shout out to our current patrons. We've got fabulous Brianna, Brianna's mom, Brianna's brother, Lindsay, Nikolai at Night, Cypher Primus, Brendan Myers, Marcus O'Neill, Lillian, Mimi J, David Hartright, Dave Harp, the Xbox Expansion Pass, Alpaca Tom, Lee Navarro, Silcana, Ellery Woods Parker III, Shelby Massey, Chad, and our newest patron, Rick Davis. Welcome to the reincarnation. Rick, if you're listening to this, I need to know if you're part of the anime reincarnation, because we're trying to take over the network, so we're kind of dividing up.
No.
We're dividing up the patrons to see, who's who. So, Rick, let me know. Thank you for your support. Sam, we get closer and closer, it feels like, every week to you having to get a tattoo. How do you feel about that?
Safe in the knowledge that is probably a few centuries off at the rate we're going. So, pretty good.
Okay. Well, you guys, if you do want to see Sam get a tattoo, just get more patrons to subscribe. I believe the number is 1,000 individual patrons.
That's correct.
However, I will say we can't technically prove that each person is an individual account. So if you want to make multiple accounts,
sure. Yeah.
Instead of doing the $5 tier, do 5 $1 tiers.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe.
They're just like, it's just like Shelby Massey 1, Shelby Massey 2. Like, this couldn't be the same person.
If we ever hit 1,000, I will personally go through and research every individual account to ensure that they are validated.
No, you won't. I'm calling BS.
We'll see.
The other voice you're hearing, just in case I didn't say it, is Sam, a co-hosted friend. Taylor is dead.
Yeah. Tried to get the venom out, but it took hold. He'll be missed.
Sounds like I tried sucking the venom out.
I didn't say that. There are plenty of other ways to get the venom out.
Yeah. Okay. I'm like literally crying right now.
Loud noises, am I right?
Is that how you get venom out?
If you're Spider-Man, yeah.
You know what? That's fair. We're not Spider-Man, but...
Have you ever seen me and Spider-Man in the same room?
Yeah, I have.
Touche.
Okay, you guys. Sam, I have 2 questions for you.
No.
I do have 2 questions for you. 1, how are you? 2, what have you been playing? Besides Bloodborne 6.
That's right. I'm all right. I'm pretty tired. I think in the latter stages of this current project, which has been consuming my time. And realistically, if I'm being completely honest with myself, I just want to get it out of the way before Astrobot arrives.
Yeah.
So that I can just dedicate myself and just relax with that game. So time is ticking.
Yeah.
But
I
am getting close, I think. From as far as I can tell, there is the mountain has been crested and we are beginning the descent.
Thinking about it, I'm going to. Oh my god, I'm almost at 200 hours in Elden Ring. Okay, Astro. I'm gonna pre-order while I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, get it. Show that support. We need more games like that. So, and for the love of God, anybody, if it is within your means and you have not yet bought Astrobot, I guarantee you, from everything we've seen, it's going to be, at the bare minimum, a very good game, if not Game of the Year contender.
I do think it'll be a Game of the Year contender. I'm not sold on it being the Game of the Year winner.
I mean,
but
we'll
I do
see.
think it'll be in the conversation.
We'll see. You know, if things like Mario can contend, I think if they stick the landing, which it seems like they might be doing with Astrobot, there's no denying that there has been and will continue to be for the next couple of months a lot of good games coming out this year. But I don't know that there's really been any like zeitgeisty, clear, standout front runners. I think obviously Rebirth is probably going to be one of them. I think Helldivers 2 stands a pretty strong chance actually of taking the prize right now, despite all of the issues it's had in the months since. And Astrobot will probably be there. I think. I don't know. I don't really know what else from the rest of this year is going to make the cut. Maybe Dragon Age, if that turns out to be good. There is a chance, I suppose. Depends on how it goes. I imagine it's going to be great. Like the Zelda game could be a contender. But besides that, maybe Concord. I think Concord would take it actually.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
I'd love it. I'd love it if there was some, you know, the dream above dreams is that something happens, some miracle occurs. It's not going to, but if some miracle happened and over the next few months there was like a salvation story that just came out of nowhere, and things aligned and that game just skyrocketed and then it became this massive success story, that would be great. But no. Yeah, so I again, just going back to the point, I think I'm going to implore everybody to please support Astrobot, if it is within your means to do so, because we want both smaller games and different types of games from PlayStation. And the more successful this game is, the better they will get that message. So, and they may get that message anyway, just in terms of having to downscale all the AAA stuff they're doing to some degree, in terms of budgeting at least. But you know, we want to give them a win after Concord unfairly is sort of like crashed and burned. But you know, Astrobot looks like a game that is worthy of praise and worthy of support, so we should support it. What have I been playing?
I was going to say, I just pre-ordered the digital deluxe edition.
Excellent. So. I've gone for physical, obviously. And you get a cool little poster. I don't know whether you've seen it. You get a poster of the ship, which is the PS5, obviously, but it's got all the internals displayed. So you've got like all the different rooms with Astrobots doing little things.
Yeah. What sold me was the Yarnum.
Yeah, of course. But it'll be one of those things where even if you buy the base edition, you can pay like the £10 or whatever to buy the digital deluxe upgrade, which I will do, because you get like the digital soundtrackers and stuff as well, I think. With that,
yeah, there's a huge list of stuff you get.
That the soundtrack for Astrobot is just bangers. You would know if you've played them. yeah, so what have I been playing? A number of things. Obviously, Star Wars Outlaws, I can now say, is the project I've been working on. Having a good time. I would agree with most of the consensus that it's like average to good. But I think that the Star Wars coat of paint does elevate it a little bit for me as a Star Wars fan. It's nothing remarkable, doesn't really do anything new per se, but if you're looking for a Star Wars game to immerse yourself in, this makes it far easier than like the Jedi Survivor Fallen Order games do. I mean, that's not really what Fallen Order and Survivor are going for, but yeah, it's good. I'll be glad to have it over and done with. That's not an indictment on the game, it's just that's how I usually feel when I come towards the end of a project. I spent over 110 hours in Outlaws currently.
That's nothing.
Over the past few months. That's, I mean, compared to things like Elden Ring, certainly that's a fraction. But so I've been playing that. I have, where I can, played a few hours here and there of Concord, but that's been very, very sparse. To my own, I wish I could be playing more of it. If I wasn't playing Outlaws, I'd be playing Concord. So I try and get in a few matches here and there when I can. And yeah, I've done that. I'm trying to think what else, because I know I've played other things. Oh, that's right. I went back to Astro's Playroom because the fourth and final VIP bot that they've been adding over the past couple of months, went back in because that was released, solved that puzzle, got that robot. So I've got 4 little bots that are going to be on my crew when I boot up Astrobot in 5 days' time. That's fun. Got my trophy progress back to 100% as well. I have played a very small amount because it's dangerous. But Vampire Survivors launched on PS5.
That is a dangerous game.
Yeah, that launched on PS5 a couple of days ago now, I think. So I picked that up and played a round. I don't know I guess you call it a round or two. And then I was like, no, I have to stop because if I keep going, I will not do anything else. So that's fun. Do you know how many trophies Vampire Survivors has on PlayStation 5?
I don't know.
Take a guess. I'll let you take a guess.
It's either like 1 or like 130.
You're wrong on both counts, I'm afraid.
Dang it. Okay, what's the answer?
221 trophies.
Damn. You're going to have a good time with that.
Too right I am. That would be the same in my head. It's why I've never really played Binding of Isaac on PS5 or anything like that, because of how randomized it is and just the amount of time you'd have to get to unlock everything and see everything and do all the different like combinations of items and stuff. That takes so long. And what I love Binding of Isaac, I've got hundreds of hours on it on Steam, but I mean, obviously I've started, so I do have trophies on Vampire Survivors now, but the idea of chasing that 100% does intimidate me. So,
as it should.
Yeah.
Finally, we found something to scare you.
I don't know that I'm going to do it. I may well try. I haven't actually really looked to see how tough it is. Like if it's things where I can actively go for things and I can guarantee I'll get them by doing this or that, then that's a bit better. But if I have to just give it up to RNG, which I think is probably going to be the case, that's a bit of a turn off. So yeah. Don't think I've been playing anything else. I've got a number of things lined up. Like I do have Cult of the Lamb installed from the PS Plus.
That game is so good.
This month. I haven't played it before, so I'm looking forward to trying that out. And I do have Vacation Simulator, which is the VR game, which they gave away on Premium because I will take all the VR games they're willing to give me. But I haven't played that yet. So there's a number of things on my PS5 dashboard that I just haven't gotten to yet. But again, once I've got Outlaws out of the way, I will have at least a couple of weeks where I can just sort of clean through some of that stuff, and that's going to feel very good.
Yeah, I see. That's what I need. I need a few weeks to clear through stuff.
Yeah.
But what are we gonna do? Because I was just looking at my list of like games that I haven't played that I want to play for this year for the Game of the Year discussion, and there's no way I'm gonna get to all of it.
Yeah.
I have Prince of Persia, Rise of Ronin, Little Kitty Big City, Ultros, Another Crab's Treasure, Animal Well, Nine Souls, and Black Myth Wukong.
I mean, you can scratch Rise of the Ronin off of there. You don't have to worry about that one.
Because
I mean, it's fine.
Oh, okay.
I would. I'm not going to proclaim to know certainly your tastes necessarily, because I think they're relatively eclectic. But I don't think that if you're lining up those kind of other games like Animal Well and the other things you said, nothing else really matters when it's Animal Well. What was the last one? Because
what was that?
You
Black Myth Wukong.
Oh no, what was the one before that?
Nine Souls.
And before that,
Animal Well.
Okay, yeah. So you didn't say anything else important other than Animal Well. But regardless, I'm being facetious. When you're lining up those other games, I think that Rise of the Ronin, if you're looking for one to scratch off to make it a bit easier,
yeah,
I think Rise of the Ronin is that one. I think if it ever comes to like PS Plus or it's on a real nice discount, absolutely go for it, because it's just like a fun sort of middle of the road open worldy type thing, with a little bit of Neo combat infused in it. But outside of that, I really don't think you need to prioritize getting to that one. So
no, that's not any sort of like list of priority.
No, I know, but I'm trying to give you outs here.
I see.
To get to the good stuff faster.
I think the two for me personally, the two biggest ones that I'm disappointed that I haven't played more of yet is Another Crab's Treasure and Nine Souls. I have played a huge chunk of Nine Souls, and I can very, very easily recommend this game to anybody that has a PC. This game needs to get on a console as soon as possible. It's an incredible game, Sam. I really do think you'd love this game. So like definitely keep an eye out for it on PlayStation.
I've heard good things. So
it's like the soundtrack is incredible, the art is incredible, like everything about that game.
Well, I think it's actually one of your highest scoring games on Fantasy Critic at the minute, isn't it? And I'm not meaning that as an attack. I just mean like indicative of its quality.
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, it didn't get like a lot of scores.
No, but the ones it did get were very high.
Yeah, let me look. I don't know what our highest. Let's see. 89 is our highest. 89 is Paper Mario. 88 is Unicorn Overlord.
Nine Souls is in that pocket.
Dogma, and then Nine Souls. So it's our fourth highest.
Yeah. Which
we have only two that are below 80 currently.
Yeah, I mean that's that's good for an indie game,
Yeah.
So yeah, particularly one in a somewhat optically crowded genre.
Yeah.
To score that well, so
it's very interesting. It is one, an overly crowded genre. Two, it's only released on PC. And three, like the way that this game was funded, I believe, was through some sort of crowdsourcing. I can't remember which one. I don't know if it was like Kickstarter or something like that, but they crowdsourced this game for a lot of it. So it also had kind of like an interesting release.
Well, I mean, what I do remember, or what I think I remember, is that they may well have like crowdfunded earlier in development as well. But I think something that happened was that they were set up for publishing with Private Division, I think. Or one of the smaller publishing labels. It might not have specifically been Private Division. And then when whatever that publishing division was folded, they had to crowdfund like self-publishing and like finishing out development. So I know that like it right at the end of development, it had a very tumultuous lead up to its release.
Yeah, that makes sense. Hold on, let's see. Devotion's devs next game smashes crowdfunding goal. It doesn't say anything. Not that I don't believe you, but it doesn't say anything on this crowdfunding article. It just says that they did a really good job on funding it. Yeah. Holy cow. They funded their goal was 454% funded. And it was done through, looks like, Red Candle. This game is, you guys, like genuinely an incredible game. They're calling it like a mix between Taoism and cyberpunk, so like Taopunk. And it has combat inspired by Sekiro. And yeah, it's really, really, I can't wait for more people to play this game because it's got such interesting art and it's really such a cool game. So I cannot wait for this to become available for more people.
Yeah.
Sam, cool. Just build a PC.
Not on your life.
Did you have anything else that you wanted to talk about with what you were playing?
I don't believe I'm playing anything else. No.
Okay, cool. Well, I have a huge backlog, but I have been playing Elden Ring DLC or Tree. I feel like I'm getting really close. From what I can tell, from a random Reddit user's photo of the full map, I have almost all of like the sites of grace. Sam was very, very, very helpful with giving me hints on where to go. And I went and did that like little area. It was not as crowded as I thought it would be. It was just like a little you could say you gave me a hand. Because that area is covered in hands. Anyways. Then I found like this I found this area that I keep needing, like I keep needing to ask you about, but I'll message you after. But I found this area and I beat a boss, and then I was like, I feel like I'm supposed to do something here, but I don't know what's going on. And then I finally got the last piece of the map because I had like that last little upper left corner. So I got that last piece. I explored the bottom area of that map piece, and then I am up at the top, and I'm at like a boss. That's a really gross boss, to be honest with you. I don't like centipedes, but it is a really cool boss. Like their design is really interesting, as well as like their moveset and stuff like that. But I do think centipedes are really gross. So, so that's kind of where I'm at. I don't know where to go from here, so that's why I like have to message you because I'm like, once I beat this thing, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. And it's not obvious since every time I go to the one area, it just says you don't have the right from all the messages. So, like, okay. So we'll figure it out. But I feel like I'm getting close to beating the DLC.
Yeah.
Which means I'll never... It means I'm almost done because I'll get to the last boss and then stop. That's what I do. So. Do I have to beat Mesmer? Or is that optional?
I actually don't know if he's optional. Hang on, I'll look it up. Because he's out of the way, relatively speaking.
Like, you don't have to go over there.
No, he's not optional. You do have to be in.
I had a feeling. Because it said, you're going to need... Like, this random NPC was like, you're going to need his flame or something. I can't remember.
Yes, of course. Yeah, of course. Yeah, you absolutely do need him to be in, yeah.
Okay. I assume that's how you get rid of the thorns then.
Can either confirm or deny.
Well, it sounds like I won't make it to Astrobot. Gonna get my ass beat for a week straight. I am using everything in this boss fight. I don't care. I'm gonna use summons, spirits. I don't care.
Yeah.
All right. I still haven't beat his mom either. You guys, we have a couple of news stories that Sam wanted to chat about.
Yes.
So the first thing I'm gonna cover, just because it's the first thing that's open, is the PlayStation MENA. I don't know, MENA. Don't know how to pronounce it. MENA Hero Project, which is stands for Middle East North Africa Hero Project.
Yeah.
So this is something that PlayStation is doing to help identify and support local developers to bring games to global gaming communities. They're supporting devs in the following countries: Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates. Emirates? I've never said that word out loud. Bahrain, Iraq, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Jordan, Egypt, Morocco, and Tunisia. I've been to one of those countries. This one.
Yeah.
This is actually really cool. Or at least I think it's really cool.
Yeah.
It's like a mentorship program. Oh, and you can apply if anybody for some reason is listening to this and you're an interested developer. You can actually apply to this program.
If you are from one of those countries,
yeah. I thought that was kind of the unspoken understanding.
Nowadays, today's audience on the internet, you need to be careful, people will just be like, oh, I can submit myself. It's like, no. I think this is the sort of thing that flies under the radar for most people. And they're like, oh, it's just a back end thing that they're doing that, the consumers don't really need to care about. And you're right to an extent. But PlayStation has been doing this a lot over the past few years of dipping their toes into essentially sort of very newly birthed regions in terms of gaming. And they are, I think, primed for a lot of success by doing so. Not only in terms of, profits and success, because for the smaller teams that would be applying to projects like this, you aren't going to have to massively invest in the same way you would for a first or second party. So you can just throw a little bit of money to this team, a little bit of money to this team. It's a very cost efficient way of making a lot of bets.
Yeah.
And if one or two of those bets pay off, you funded it, you realistically probably, not necessarily guaranteed, but most likely have it exclusive on console, at least. That's a huge boon to your platform. It is a boon to your consumers because they get to play a lot of cool games. If exclusivity cares, you have that arrow in your quiver as well. And also, you are more likely to experience stories from these different cultures and see different perspectives and unique takes on things. And I think that's enriching to the portfolio that is available on PlayStation.
That's how we get like games like Chia, right?
Precisely. And I don't, as far as I know, that wasn't as any part of like a project or outreach program. I could be wrong. But you're exactly right. Even if Chia isn't a direct example, the more you open up your doors to things like these projects, the more likely you are to find those next little hidden gems. And just due to the nature of this beast, a lot of them, if not all of them, are going to be indie to AA. And we know who's heading up that initiative at PlayStation, good old Shuhei Yoshida. So anything that gets him, keeps him in the game, bring it on. I'll take it. We need Shuhei to live eternal and help keep PlayStation, get the smaller games to PlayStation. Because they have there's this MENA project, but they've also, sorry, I'll pass it to you, but they've got the India Hero project and the China Hero project as well currently. And you're seeing with Black Myth Wukong how important China is as a market. And, I think not necessarily specifically China, but you see the success of things like Stellar Blade coming from Korea. And it's very clear that there is a lot of very impressive talent in those regions in the East, and also a lot of consumers who are, again, sort of newly, freshly exposed to this idea of console gaming and deviating away from solely mobile gacha MOBA things, which is what is prominent over there in those countries primarily.
Well, I mean, I will say, I think that like a lot of people in many, 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 many other countries have grown up playing games just like we have,
Sure.
And I think that kind of, when you grow up playing games, it's natural for a lot of people to then want to make games. And so these other, like all of these other countries that have also grown up playing games have not had as much of as many opportunities like to be funded, to be able to make their games and stuff like that. So I do think that stuff like this is incredibly important, because just because it's like an American company doesn't necessarily mean that they should be funded.
Yeah.
Not to say that they shouldn't be funded, but I think that we will be a lot better off having many more companies funded from other countries and cultures. So
I mean, people wonder why PlayStation is so successful, and it is because, not wholly because, but at least partially because of initiatives like this, where PlayStation just spread themselves. They permeate and they get in early. All of these markets are burgeoning in terms of console gaming specifically. Obviously, that doesn't mean that it's non-existent in these countries, but primarily, again, it is free to play and mobile, especially in like China, certainly. But PS5's selling out in China and Japan. Now that could be because of the price hike, sure, but also because of things like Black Myth Wukong. Sony saw a thing, they got in, late or early, doesn't really matter as long as you're in first. And with projects like these, they'll be establishing working relationships with these teams. And I know that we shouldn't like champion this or even necessarily think it's a good thing, but in some way, like inevitably, just due to how psychology works, if PlayStation sees these teams, and they might be first-time teams developing their first game, PlayStation funds them partially or fully, whatever, and that means that they can get their game out. Those developers might then feel inclined to, reciprocate and sort of feel that they owe something to PlayStation, because they helped them get out there and expose them to the world, and that is just going to solidify the connections. Yeah. It's exactly what PlayStation did with most of the teams that it's acquired over the past 2 decades, where it builds a working relationship, it funds their games externally as second party, and then if things go really well over multiple projects, then they can be brought in-house. And if PlayStation then does acquire even just say 1 or 2 teams from each of these hero projects, which is unlikely, but let's say just say 1 team that excels above the rest in terms of exposure or sales or whatever, 1 team from each of these projects, they can probably be bought relatively cheaply in comparison to like an established, well-known name. And also they then have a foothold in those markets and regions for the talent there.
Yeah.
And that is something that competitors don't have as much. because Nintendo is very Japanese centric and Xbox is seemingly closing down most of its studios that aren't in America. So, you know, I think
I
it
do think it's safe to
behooves.
say that uh I think that it's safe to say that Xbox is very Western centric, like in
Of
terms of
course.
their focus.
And it always has,
Um,
give credit to them. It always has. It's not like that's changed too much. It's just that they have recently seemingly decided to not really try to be anything other than that.
yeah, kind of doubling down on it through
Yeah.
omission.
Yeah. And this is, if you care about, the console experience and you care about exclusives and all of this, superficial to many, but important to some, or at least on some level, certainly to me, not in a fanboy way, but just I like how things are going with PlayStation. So I want that to continue. This is ways of finding growth without having to fundamentally upset the core business mechanics of the corporation as it has functioned for the past several decades at this point. So this is a very organic way of growing and spreading the field, I think.
Yeah. I wonder, I kind of want to look at a report to see which countries are mobile gaming focused versus console gaming focused. I would not that I think a report like that exists, but I would be curious
Yeah,
to see where mobile gaming is most popular. I do think I agree with you that it's probably most popular China, and I know
China
that
for
it's
sure.
pretty popular in not as popular but still popular in Japan and Korea.
Yep, yep.
Because of all the gotcha games and stuff like that. Um but I would say it might not be as prevalent in the Middle East. I could
No,
totally be wrong, but don't remember.
I don't want to speak out of turn, but I kind of feel like certainly like UAE,
Mm,
the Emirates. Again, I don't live there. I've never been. I can only speak on what I see and the little conversation that is had. UAE does seem to me, optically at least, to kind of be similar to the UK in the sense that like PlayStation is just the de facto thing there. It's
mm,
just a given that PlayStation, if you're going to pick up a console, you're almost 100% guaranteed to pick up a PlayStation. Like I've seen so much PlayStation marketing in sort of the Saudi Arabia, UAE regions. And yeah, I
yeah.
guess it makes sense.
Yeah, I also think it's interesting that by kind of focusing on American markets, I would also say that Xbox probably culturally appears to be a quintessential American thing. So I also have to wonder if it's kind of you know what I mean, where it's whether it is a quintessential American thing or not, there are some things that are kind of perceived to be. So I wonder if that's kind of part of Xbox's strategy.
Yeah, I mean, like whether it's fair or not, it doesn't really matter in the world of business. But there's no denying that people are stubborn,
Mhm,
and Microsoft is an American company,
mhm,
and Sony is a Japanese company,
mhm,
and PlayStation found its roots in Japan. Obviously, that's where it started, and it permeated out from there. Obviously, PlayStation has certainly become far more Western, but it's clear, certainly over the past couple of years, at the very least, certainly since Jim Ryan left, that they are to some degree trending back towards that Japanese direction, at
mhm.
least in part, which is great. Um, but like again, not that it's a massive deal, but Xbox did sort of ride the coattails of the initial PlayStation
Mhm.
with the first Xbox. It saw how successful the PlayStation 1 was and then brought in the Xbox for the PS2 era. So I think there is like the idea that Xbox is kind of like butting its way into the industry and is doing like reactionary moves, and you could argue that they are doing reactionary moves right now. So I think that like you give people preconceptions about what your corporation is and how it runs and what its ethos is, and whether that's fully true or not, if you are even slightly replicating things that will embolden those perceptions in specific regions that your competitor isn't, then you're inherently at a disadvantage. So, but it's interesting. I would love to see more, and I'm sure we will, to some degree, see more of these hero projects from PlayStation in the years to come.
Yeah, I hope so as well. Okay, so the next thing that we had here on the dock was Black Myth Wukong selling 10 million copies as of August 23rd. I dread to think what the number is now because we're another, 9 days away from that now.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely seems well-deserved. Everybody that I've talked to that has been playing it loves the game, thinks that it's incredible. The very few like cutscenes and fights I've seen look really fun. So it seems to be definitely well-deserved. I do also want to point out that there were at 1.3 million concurrent players, which is a lot of people, you guys. Another thing that I thought was funny, which is what made me giggle earlier, was this guy said Game of the Year Apes Together Strong, which is of course super funny.
Yeah. I'm surprised you even got the reference, to be honest.
You don't want to know how I got the reference, to be honest. It's not from the movies.
Oh dear. Yeah, no, I definitely don't want to know then.
Yeah.
But like again, I added this in not only because it's impressive in its own right, and obviously clearly a very shrewd move from Sony to by hook or by crook, whatever way they did it or didn't do it, whatever the thing is, they have it as a console exclusive for the time being, and that is clearly benefiting them a great deal, even if there is, as far as I've heard, a fair number of performance issues on PS5, and there is controversy around the game. Doesn't really matter when PS5s are selling out in Japan and in China, because if people want to play this game and they aren't capable of playing it on PC, they will have to get a PS5 to do so. And that's clearly what a lot of people have done.
It's what I find like really, this is kind of like tangentially related, but I do find it really interesting is that Wukong specifically, like as a mythological character, is really actually incredibly prevalent across the game industry. And I think that that's really interesting to me because I don't think that there's a lot of other figures in mythology like that are prevalent like Wukong is, because I think there's like 3 or 4 games off the top of my head that I can think of that have a character that are based off of Wukong. So I do think that's really interesting.
Yeah, Journey to the West is just like, it's a synonymous story. It's the same way of like so many films and TV shows and even games like Last of Us draw reference to The Road, the sort of post-apocalyptic novel. I
need to read that.
Storytelling and formatting and characters and structure and tone and setting and all of that. So I think
but like character specifically, I can't think of any other characters that are specific like this, where it's like there's multiple games that have this one character.
Sure, but I think they go hand in hand in the sense that if you are in any way directly translating some aspect of Journey to the West, inherently there will be a Wukong or a Wukong type character. I think also, not that this will be a very minor thing, but like it's worth, I guess, saying that like there is the potential that some games could sort of tangentially coast by off of the premise just because they have like you play as a monkey, you know. And I know that's very reductionist and isn't.
Well, no, I mean like more literally, where it's like there's a character named Wukong in League of Legends.
Yeah,
there's a character in another MOBA that I cannot remember the name of off the top of my head, named Wukong. Like there are people that are literally pulling this character. I will say I think that like the closest for me would probably be Thor, but I think Thor is more prevalent in like movies and TV because of Marvel.
Yeah, but I mean,
like,
you know, you clearly, based on the success of this game, know why so many games do have references or just overtly Wukong, Journey to the West centric characters in it, because it will immediately, clearly, to whatever extent, captivate those markets.
Mm-hmm.
It will instantly make whatever game or project or TV show or movie or whatever probably 100 times over more appealing and attractive to those markets than it would do otherwise.
Yeah, so, I think that like the point I was almost trying to make was that like it seems to be like that this story is very universal and very important.
Yeah,
you know,
hence my road, you know, my road point that is just like a synonymous, eponymous work that everybody draws on and can universally relate to because the themes and the concepts and everything.
Have you read The Road?
Yeah.
How dry is it?
I don't think it's overly dry. Well, depends on what you're comparing it to. Like if you're comparing it to Stephen King, absolutely it's not dry whatsoever. But compared to some of the stuff that you read, it might be a bit dry.
Listen, all I'm doing is reading porn all day, so of course it'll be dry compared to that.
Thanks for clarifying that.
What do you want from me? Dude, my friend scrolled through, which is the worst thing. She scrolled through my read books because she's like, Brina, have you read so much? She starts scrolling through and it's like all of those, I hate the covers, but it's the covers of books that are like all the shirtless men. She was like, damn, Brianna. And I was like, I didn't make the cover. But here we are, having a good time. Almost 110 books in. So, all right, last one, you guys. The creative director of Astrobot has ruled out the possibility of a PSVR 2 version, but says he wants to hear from the fans about a potential PC port in the future. That means a PC port is already in the works. Sorry.
For sure.
Just to interpret that.
I find that so strange. Like, obviously, it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, but for a game that is going to be so centered around celebrating PlayStation, well, I do. I guess the point I want to make is, I wonder how that is going to resonate with an audience that feels far less nostalgia for PlayStation. Because I'm sure, like the quality of the game will still ring through as a great platformer, but because it's so
you also forget PlayStation people moved over to PC and just stopped buying PlayStations.
I mean, that's clearly not true based on the sales figures we're getting.
No, but I'm saying that there are PC players that would still appreciate the nostalgia regardless.
Sure. And but I mean, like in the wider scope, I think that it's in the same way that Astro's Playroom was a love letter to PlayStation fans, and like I guess even more importantly, how is something like Astrobot going to work when you don't have a DualSense?
Well,
because that not only Astro's Playroom but Astrobot is very clearly heavily not reliant, that's the wrong word, but heavily utilizes the DualSense and the haptics. You think
they'll require that you have a DualSense?
No, I can't see that happening. I think realistically what they'll do is just the easiest thing and just strip out those features. Like not from the game itself, but just remove the idea of any rumble, because you can't obviously replicate that on a PC, or any haptic triggers and stuff.
I mean, here's my thing. I think that this, like, if you actually go into the VGC article, like it immediately answers the question where they say it's designed for a different medium, and I think that that's why it's not going to PSVR 2, and could potentially be going to PC, where it's like, I think that like the medium that they're wanting to use for the game makes more sense in those markets. You know what? Actually, the real quote is, well, because he said, like, he was asked about the PC port, and he said, well, we want to hear from you. Absolutely. We want to hear from you. That gives me less hope that there is a PC port in the works currently.
I mean, it might not be actively in the works, but I guarantee it will come. Because I think that's just going to be the case going forwards, that every single player game, with, I guess, very minor rare exceptions, will go over. Because again, the console space is mostly conceded at this point, even now, and it will just further become the case.
Checkmate.
So they don't really have any reason to not become a bit more aggressive in their PC strategy, because PC isn't a direct competitor.
But I think, to your point, does Astrobot make sense on PC?
That's my question. I think, again, the quality of the game will still shine through, because you'll still be able to do the platforming and everything, but to engage with all the things that you pull on and you feel the resistance in the controller.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
All of those things that will be intrinsic to the moment-to-moment gameplay of Astrobot. I don't know how well that's going to translate if you don't have a DualSense in your hands. And obviously, if it did come to PC, they would have DualSense support, of course. But if you don't have that, I don't know. That will
just simulate it with your mouse.
That's right. Yeah, they will just make every mouse on the planet suddenly have resistance and haptics. Yeah.
I don't mean that part. I mean, like, just doing the motions, you dork.
Yeah, but I mean, no.
But no.
No. They'll just strip it out and have you just play the game with no feedback or any interactions, controller wise.
Maybe that's a better way to play the game.
I'd fundamentally disagree, but again, I don't know that stuff matters necessarily to PC players who haven't experienced a DualSense or don't care about playing with a controller, but it is intrinsic to Astrobot in terms of game design and how you interact with it moment to moment. So we'll see.
We will see.
I think, regardless of how well it does or how it plays or whatever, I think it still does make sense in some capacity to hand over Astrobot to Nixes or whatever, 6 months down the line, a year down the line, and just port it out. It might not do incredibly well, but it's still going to be a bit of free money that not free, but you know what I mean, additional money that PlayStation can reap. So we'll see. We'll still be playing it though with all the features, so that's all I care about, really.
Yeah, that does sound about right.
I'm not surprised in the slightest, by the way, that it's not coming to PSVR 2, because it would have to be, like Nicholas said, an entirely different game, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like, the most that it would make sense is, like, using, like, the theater view of just, like, sitting and using it as a TV.
Yeah. Although I will say I'm not entirely convinced that there isn't some kind of Astro experience in the future at some point that might have
for sure
some VR compatibility. Obviously that depends on how soon that thing comes out, because support will likely cease for PSVR 2 in the next couple of years.
Imminently. It's coming for you.
We'll see. So, but I also think that because of Astro's lineage with VR, I don't think that that's off the table necessarily. Not in terms of like another full game, but just like a supported mode or something, additional mini experience. There's a chance there. So, but I haven't got my hopes up.
That's probably for the best.
Yep.
Well, Sam, we have a topic as well.
Let's go.
And just to preface this, I feel like we've done this topic 2 times already this year, and this is the 3rd time. And here we are hoping, praying. There are rumors that there is a showcase, state of play, something from PlayStation coming shortly.
Everyone is suggesting it is state of play.
That would make sense to me.
Jeff Grubb was pretty definitive. Obviously, he called the state of play at the end of May or March or whenever that was. He said it was going to be at the end of the month, and everyone was like, "No, it's not. It's the end of the month, and it's not here." And then PlayStation announced it for the very last day of that month. So I'm inclined to believe him again. I'm surprised.
Just the editor. Just
maybe that's it. Maybe Jim Ryan was just give him a quick call. I'm surprised. I'm not going to jump to the conclusion that this means that no showcase will ever happen again, but I think more so that they might just be morphing what state of play looks like to them internally. In the same way that you don't get a Nintendo showcase, you just get directs. And some directs are relatively inconsequential and others are megatons. So
you think they'll stop doing showcases at all?
Well, no, I'm not there yet. I still think that there is a chance that showcases could still exist, but I don't think that they are going to be regimented in terms of, if they do still do them, I don't know that they're going to be like a mandated one every year. I think PlayStation, in a similar way to Nintendo, will just talk when they're ready to talk. And if that means you go a year without a showcase, but you get a relatively strong couple of state of plays to dictate what's happening in the next 6 months or so.
Here's my thing is that PlayStation doesn't seem to understand like what Nintendo is doing. Because I feel like every time it's not 100% of the time, but recently it feels like it's been a lot of just disappointment. And it just feels like they don't understand like the frequency with which they should be doing the state of plays, what should be in the state of plays, stuff like that. So I do think that they really need to go back to the drawing board on like the formula of like how to do it.
I think it's there's just a confluence of factors that have ended us right now in a little bit of a sticky situation where they had the U-turn on the live service push, which obviously cancelled projects, delayed a number of others, and that's why we're in the sort of deficit of big first party stuff this year and early next year, as we know from the financial report. I think as well, it's the fact that late PS4, early PS5, we as consumers were kind of spoiled, not only in terms of the products themselves that they were putting out and the clip at which they were putting them out, but also the shows that they had to show off those games were all pretty stellar across the board. And that, at least in our heads, mentally set a precedent that we assumed that they would either be able to follow or would actively pursue following. And like realistically, if we admit it, like that is somewhat unsustainable in terms of how PlayStation as a corporation is structured. Like there just aren't really enough teams with the games that they are currently known to make, where you can do a big show every year and have these big megaton announcements every single year. I'd love that, but it's just, like that realistically can't work with how things are structured right now. And I think as well, it certainly doesn't help. Not that it's super important, but it is somewhat. It's not irrelevant. Is Xbox just had one of their best showcases they've ever had. So when you go from last year's showcase, which was a disappointment to put it lightly for most people,
Yeah.
and then you go to Xbox's showcase where they did what they did a couple of months ago, and it's like, for the most part, radio silence from PlayStation, even though we're still getting games, exclusive or not, and they're good. The not talking doesn't really. I think it's more unsettling than anything else. We know that when PlayStation deliver, more often than not, even with something like Concord, it's still quality. It's not a bad game. So we know that when they will deliver, they are going to deliver. But it's like, we just
they're going to serve.
Exactly. Yeah. But with all of the trials and tribulations and things, and how tumultuous things have been with their business strategy and the shifts they've made, we kind of just want reassurance right now. We realistically, we know that everything will be okay because the game, the teams are cooking on things. We know they are. They have to be. So things are going to come. It's just like, we need to know. We just want to know, as entitled consumers, to an extent, because they do have to talk to consumers. Obviously, that is a responsibility of theirs. But we've also been treated very well by PlayStation over the past several years, and I think we just want to know that we're going to get more of it, which we're entitled to feel. So I think, whilst it might be a state of play at the end of this month, I'm assuming that is what it's going to be. I don't think that necessarily precludes it from being a big show, because Astrobot will have already released, and them returning to Tokyo Game Show for the first time since 2019 doesn't mean nothing.
No, it doesn't mean nothing.
So they're going to Tokyo Game Show to show things. Now we know, obviously, likely part of that will be the PS5 Pro, having it probably available to demo on. We know that Death Stranding 2 will be there in some capacity, because it's having its own private presentation, separate presentation with Kojima and the Japanese voice cast. And we know, realistically, and I guess this will feed into some of the predictions or assumptions we'll be making, things that are still to come at that point will be Until Dawn, remake, Silent Hill 2, and Lego Horizon. Those are the three things for this year that are first or second party exclusives that they'd be wanting to promote. But I don't know. I feel like if there's going to be a state of play alongside a Tokyo Game Show, I feel like there has to be more stuff.
Yeah.
So
I would agree with that.
And I'm not going to expect it. I'm not going to set myself up for disappointment. But I did do a bit of research. And just because Tokyo Game Show doesn't historically have a big proclivity for game announcement, PlayStation are very strange with some of the things that they've done. Because, again, several years ago at this point, but The Last of Us Part 2 was announced at PlayStation Experience in 2017. It wasn't an E3. It wasn't a Game Awards. It wasn't anything big. It was PlayStation Experience, which obviously doesn't exist anymore. I'd love for that to come back, but probably not. And then, even more prudently, Ghost of Tsushima was announced, first teaser trailer, splash screen logo, everything, at Paris Games Week, which is even smaller than something like PSX. So PlayStation are coming back to Tokyo Game Show after 5 years, and the thumbnail of this video, Tokyo Game Show would logically be a pretty good place to be like, oh, hey, this game that's set in Japan, here's the sequel. Tease it. Confirm it's real, at least.
I wonder. I mean, I do think that makes sense. I think that timing wise, it makes sense. I think that like location wise, it makes sense. I just feel like I'm kind of a negative Nancy on them announcing anything right now. Like, we don't like. I feel like every time I say like they have to say something, they in fact don't say anything.
Yeah, your perspective is because they've gaslit you a few times.
So that's why I'm trying to separate that negativity out of it. And I think that what you're saying makes sense for the announcement, but also like I know that Tokyo Game Show is big. I know that Tokyo Game Show is important, but how much? Because, like you said, PlayStation hasn't been there for a while. So, is PlayStation going to metaphorically blow one of their loads at Tokyo Game Show, or are they just going to show what they already have?
I mean, but my counter would be: do they really, after all the games they've had in the past 5 years? Do they really decide to come back to Tokyo Game Show for Until Dawn remake, Silent Hill 2, and Lego Horizon?
Silent Hill 2 reimagined.
Yeah. But like really? They didn't go back for Horizon, God of War, Spider-Man, Ratchet and Clank, Returnal. None of the Final Fantasy 16 they didn't go to Tokyo Game Show for. Didn't go for
That one
Rebirth.
does seem weird.
Didn't go for Rebirth. And yet they're going this year when all of those games have come and gone. And the Pro is rumored to be revealed this month. And we really are like running out of games that we know about that are coming to the platform in terms of first or second party. Because outside of Astrobot, which is releasing in 5 days, we have, again, Until Dawn, Silent Hill 2, Lego Horizon. We know about Wolverine, Death Stranding 2, Fair Games. Technically include Marathon if you want, although like that's technically a multi-platform thing. But it would still be part of whatever presentation they decided to do. That's sort of it. And that's not great. In a world where you're, again, I'm not trying to get console worry, but in a world where your competitor is taking repeated PR hits and is weakened and is giving you games and is capitulating, you don't want to like put the boot on the neck and like really put the nail in the coffin. You don't want to be like, yeah, so next year you're going to be able to play Indiana Jones and you're probably going to end up being able to play Avowed and maybe even Fable. And also, here's Ghost of Tsushima 2, here's Death Stranding 2, here's a look at X, here's a look at Y, here's a look at Z. Oh, and all of those things we just talked about, yeah, you can only get them here. So you're thinking about making a purchasing decision? Yeah, this is probably the right move to make because guess what? We've got this brand new Pro console that can run all of those games that we just talked about, including our competitors, the best. You want to play Indiana Jones with the highest frame rate and best fidelity? Guess what? That's on our console, not theirs. Come, over you come.
I'm saying, like, I'm saying, yes, I do agree with that. And I do think that would be a smart move for PlayStation. But I also think that they're playing their own game at this point.
Yeah, to be clear, I don't think that they would be that aggressive. But they could be.
I mean, I think they'll be a little bit more tasteful about it than flat out saying, like...
I'm of course exaggerating. I'm not saying that they're going to say.
I do think it would be funny. You know how they always have like that game that's like, look at how cool this game looks in like this new console whenever they have like the pro console or whatever. I do think it would be really funny if they did that with
It's just
like
Halo.
yeah, it's just like an Xbox
Oops, sorry,
game.
didn't mean to show that.
They're like, compared to competitors, this game looks so much nicer. It's like an Xbox game.
Yeah,
Like I
that
do
would be
think that that
funny.
would be really, really funny.
Yeah, it would.
I don't think they'll do that.
No, God no, and Microsoft would never allow it. But like, I don't know. I think I know we've said it a few times, but it really is time for them to talk. And if they're not going to
Why are
word
you
vomit
literally?
everything, if they're not going to word vomit everything that they have in the chamber all at once, at least throw a couple of bullets our way. You know, like you don't,
Yeah.
if you want to be a bit more conservative about when you announce things, so you don't have to delay games, and you can be like, hey, we're revealing this game here and it's out in 6 months or 4 months or something, like they've done with Astrobot.
Oh, God, you know what? That does kind of make me feel bad though, because like, what if that's what they're doing? What if they're like, you know what? We don't want to pressure devs anymore into having to be in a release, and so we're announcing games like much closer to actual release when we know they're ready, and we're just like, where's the games?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
What if
I
we're
think that,
bullies?
but I think that is to some extent, at least partially, what they're doing, where
I don't
they are
know.
letting the teams cook. They're doing their thing. Obviously, there is still like internally as well course correction within a lot of these teams that were doing to some extent multiplayer projects and are sort of pulling off of that a little bit or deprioritizing at the very least. But like again, I think I said a few weeks ago, Concord was revealed technically last year, but we actually found out what the game was at the state of play in May, and then it's out now. And Astrobot was fully revealed for the first time at that same state of play, and we get it in 5 days. And I think that, like, I'm not championing it. I still like to know the pipeline, to see a roadmap to get excited about. But I do think that with PlayStation's IP as it stands right now in terms of their portfolio, most of that IP has the brand recognition and power that they could do like what Todd Howard did with Fallout 4, where they say, here's this game, the next installment in XYZ franchise. Oh, and by the way, it's out in 5 months. Have fun, guys. Because they'll market it, but do you really need a huge lead up to Ghost of Tsushima 2? Because most people that know, have heard of Ghost of Tsushima, know what it is. People
That one
know
I think is
Last
a
of
little bit
Us.
more difficult. Last of Us, I would say yes. Like I would agree on The Last of Us, where it's like you don't. I think that The Last of Us is, you need a lot less marketing for it because of how prevalent it is and everything. So if you were like Last of Us 3 out in 5 months, I think that's fine. But I do think that Ghost is not as prevalent, obviously, as The Last of Us. So I do think, not that it necessarily needs help, but I do think that they'll want to market that one a little bit more.
Yeah, I guess I
And
get.
at least until the like what movie? Movie,
Yeah,
right? Comes out. Yeah. And then once that happens, then they don't have to worry about it as much.
I don't know. Like I understand, but I think I still will probably just disagree, because I think the success of Ghost of Tsushima is not to be trifled, and I'm not suggesting that you are
Well,
trifling.
how many copies sold? Hold on.
I don't know actually, off the top of my head. It sold very well.
9.7 million.
Yeah, which is for a brand new IP, very strong. And it's only percolated since then, and it's spread out, and it's certainly beloved in Japan. Like I think Famitsu gave it a perfect score, which very rarely
Wow.
happens.
Last of Us Part 2 only sold 10 million in comparison.
That's what I mean. So it's like, I think, yes, Last of Us might have more mainstream, technically zeitgeisty recognition, but I think that realistically, when it comes down to it, in the same way that I understand optics, Ghost of Tsushima seems less prevalent, but in terms of sales, I think it's relatively one-to-one with most other big IP, including like God of War, even. So
interesting.
I especially because it's a sequel as well, the amount of people that bought into Ghost of Tsushima 1, and obviously most people, like 98%, I would assume, loved it. When you're marketing a sequel, it's like, well, it's just more of that, you know?
Yeah.
So you can then highlight the new things, the changes, the improvements, all of that. But the baseline, in the same way that you wouldn't have to like fully re-expose people when The Last of Us Part 3 comes along, it's like, or when the next God of War comes along, or whatever, the next Horizon comes along, you know it's more Horizon, you know it's more God of War, you know it's more Last of Us. When it comes to like new IP, I think that obviously makes more sense to market more, because you need to build the tone and set the understanding of what type of game it is. But people know what type of game Ghost of Tsushima is. So, and you know that the sequel isn't going to deviate massively. It's not going to become some FPS, you know. It's going to be another third-person action-adventure open-world RPG type game, with Ubisoft-y exploration-y stuff thrown in. So I don't know. I think it's still viable that they could say, and it would be by definition, I guess, by the information we have, a wider window. But if they did announce it this month, or at least tease it, like give us a logo or a very brief teaser trailer, and then it said spring 2025, and it launched like May, June, you know, because we know no big installments in existing franchises is coming before April. I think it was April 2025.
Is that when their year starts, their fiscal year?
I'm not sure if that's specifically when it starts, but that's what they said in their financial report.
So that means that there could be something releasing in April.
Yeah, but it just wouldn't be an installment in an existing major franchise.
So it has to be after April then for
like a Ghost 2 or
so yeah, so
Spider-Man
May, June.
3.
I mean, I do think that June is isn't that when they did Last of Us?
Well, Last of Us and Ghost
June?
launched. Last of Us and Ghost launched within like a month of each other, didn't they?
Oh, please don't do that again.
First Ghost launched 17th of July 2020.
Interesting. Okay.
So you like, I would, if Ghost is coming next year, I guess it could technically be July again.
July 2025.
I do think you could come in a little bit earlier than that. But again, if we don't know about something that is a new IP that could be coming in that first quarter, let's say, that we don't know about yet, which could happen, that would allow Ghost to be more middle of the year, because we'd have a big first party thing that is a new IP earlier on that would sort of fill that gap. But yeah, I don't know. There's some speculation that Ghost 2 isn't even next year, which I think is, I'd be shocked.
I mean, there's like, isn't there also like speculation that Ghost 2 doesn't even exist and that it's a different franchise?
I haven't seen that. I think like all I,
because we haven't had it confirmed.
No.
I think that would be dumb, but
yeah, I mean, there's no way that a Ghost of Tsushima,
especially since they're doing the movie, right? It wouldn't make sense to move away from that franchise.
Yeah, like the IP is straight up too valuable. and the first game did too well for a new IP to not do more. All I know that I've seen concretely is that there were job postings for Sucker Punch that were talking about open world expertise in an action adventure game. So
that sounds like
I
Ghost.
mean, you can connect the dots.
Would you? Okay, because I know Ghost. This is 100% a tangent, but I am curious. I know that Ghost is technically an open world,
Mhm.
but it feels like it's like more of like a narrow open world, right? Like it doesn't feel like it's like super, like, not that that's a detriment to the game. Just like it doesn't feel like it's like a huge open world. It feels like it's like much more focused.
I think that's just because the way in which that it unlocks access to the open world, because you gain access to the different sections of the island based on what act of the story you're in.
Yeah.
And it's only after you finish the story that you can freely access all of it. Or I should say, Act 1, you're in the first section. Act 2, you have access to the first and the second section. And then Act 3, you are locked to the third section, as far as I remember, until you finish the story, and then you have access to everything.
Okay.
So it's like a progressive thing. So I understand that sentiment. Like, I would still say it is open world, but like it's just that the way that the game is structured maybe makes it feel a little bit more regimented and not linear, but yeah, I understand what you mean. Yeah. A bit like you say, more narrow. That's a perfect description.
Okay, cool. That was a tangent, but I was curious because I was thinking about it and I was like, I think my dad would like this game, but he freaks out about open world. He just goes, Brianna, I just can't. But before I tried to sell him on the game, wanted to make sure that my thinking was like he would be able to handle it.
Yeah.
Okay. Before we move on to the questions, I do have, is there any other like predictions that you wanted to like wrap into this like state of play thing coming? Do you have any like time frames, any other games that you want to call out?
I have a number of predictions.
Okay, let's hear it.
So I think obviously like a given, like we said, Until Dawn.
How many of these are educated guesses versus predictions?
I don't have any insight into things actually appearing.
Okay.
I've heard about there being a show.
Okay.
But I don't know what's in it. That could change, but if I knew something, I probably wouldn't make predictions.
Okay.
Or if I did make predictions, I'd make predictions about things I don't know about.
Okay. So anyways, Until Dawn.
So obviously Until Dawn, Silent Hill 2, Lego Horizon. You would imagine Lego Horizon will get the release date for that as well.
Okay.
I think that will probably be December, is my educated guess, again with no inside information. If they're still going to hit this year, which is what it's set to be, I think December feels right because you have other things that fill the other months, whereas you don't really have anything in December, so that could work. Also,
got a release date.
Maybe it did, but I'm pretty sure. I mean, it showed up at the direct. It showed up at the direct, but it didn't have a date, as far as I remember.
Okay, let's see.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but so I think those three are obviously a given, and that's not like technically these things could show up at the Tokyo Game Show and a State of Play, or they might be at Tokyo Game Show and not at the State of Play. But I'll wrap everything into both Tokyo Game Show and the State of Play because I imagine that they're going to occur relatively close to one another, like within a couple of days max. So those three will be talked about this month. I'll phrase it that way. I think we'll probably also get a release date for the Metro VR game. They could show as well Behemoth and Alien Incursion, which were the other two VR games that they showed at the last State of Play. I think they both got release dates, but it might just be another appearance of those games.
Hopefully not. We need to see more stuff.
there seems to be a token VR segment to all of these shows nowadays.
Yeah, they're really
Um,
trying.
I think Capcom will show up in some capacity, is my prediction. Whether that could be one of two things. They could show up twice, but I doubt it. But I think they will appear. Either it's, for the love of God, another showing of Monster Hunter Wilds, or, and I would hope it's this more, something Resident Evil. Because Resident Evil has, for the past
We're
few
ready.
years, or for the past few installments in Resident Evil, they've all debuted at PlayStation shows. So
Have they
whether
really?
that
I don't think I
is,
noticed that. Okay, that's cool.
yeah, Resident Evil Village was at the PS5 reveal.
Love that game.
Resident Evil 4 remake was at one of the State of Plays when that was announced and revealed.
What do you
Obviously the
think
VR modes for both games.
Do you think we're getting a new game next then?
Well, it's going to be one of two things. It's either going to be the reveal of Resident Evil 9, which people have talked about maybe being next year. I don't know if I believe that, but if it is next year, you could imagine like a initial reveal at a PlayStation show. Or it's like a new remake. People have talked about like Code Veronica happening. Some people said it could be Resident Evil 1, but I don't think that's happening, not for the time being at least. So I think Capcom will show up in some capacity. I'd like for it to obviously be Resident Evil. And I think that is arguably more likely because, like you say, it is sort of time for something Resident Evil, I think.
Yeah.
I think, though there is the separate presentation at TGS, I do think that Death Stranding 2 would pop up in some capacity at a State of Play. And I don't know, but the way that Kojima works, I think that if Death Stranding 2 does show up, it will be a shorter trailer, but it will have the reveal of another cast member as like the big, whoa, this person's in this game. I think, again, if we're like pie in the sky, there could be a Ghost 2 teaser. I think people might laugh, obviously, because of how things are going, but Concord does have seasons lined up. And like showing what is in season 1 for Concord, which is coming in October, would make sense to be at a PlayStation show, obviously. So I imagine Concord will show up because they're not going to not do at least the initial few seasons that they've promised on the roadmap that they put out. They might not do anything beyond that, but they've committed to that stuff, so that will show up. And Astrobot technically has talked about additional free content coming after the game comes out before the end of the year, like additional challenge levels and outfits, I think, and a few other things. I feel like that might be a bit early, considering the game's coming out in a few days, but not off the cards, because if it's not here, then where?
Yeah.
They could say it's just like a random PlayStation blog announcement or a YouTube video, but I don't know. If you know that content is coming, you might as well do it whilst you have a captive audience. And the only other thing, I'm going to say this in the hopes that it materializes. I'm going to say that if there is any, we see it here. Spider-Man 2 DLC. Obviously, as part of the Insomniac hack, and also people like jailbreaking the game and getting access to debug menus. There was clearly at some stage DLC planned for Spider-Man 2. I won't say what it was centered around if people haven't seen all of that information. But the only reason that I still potentially cling to the hopes that it might be real and actually come out, as opposed to them being like, no, we'll just move on to other projects, is that both Burning Shores for Horizon Forbidden West and Valhalla for God of War Ragnarok were revealed and released around a year after the base game came out.
Mm.
And we're approaching that time for Spider-Man 2.
I still think, for me, I definitely agree we are approaching that time, but it still feels like a little bit, I don't know, maybe not, because Insomniac does work really quickly.
Well, I mean, Spider-Man 2 came out in October, and if this state of play is at the end of September, that lines up. Be like, here's Spider-Man 2 DLC,
Comes
and
out in a
it's
week
out
or whatever.
in, a week, 2 weeks, whatever. They could shadow drop it, I guess. Like, I think the game is big enough that they could shadow drop a DLC. But again, it's one of those things where they don't really need a massive marketing lineup before it comes out, because it would just sell itself. So I'm not convinced that Spider-Man 2 DLC is happening. I am inclined to believe they probably decided it's just better to move on to other stuff and get Wolverine out that little bit faster, maybe, or something else a little bit faster, maybe. But some work was clearly done on DLC. So if they didn't decide to scrap it, now would be the time that they would probably announce it and release it, because that lines up with the DLC they've done for their other big tentpole games over the past couple of years.
Okay. Yeah, you've convinced me on that one.
Yeah. Okay. And who would complain? Who would complain?
Nobody.
More Spider-Man 2, exactly. Any excuse to go back to that game, I'll gladly take.
I need Miguel. You brought Spider-Man up.
You've got a 2099 suit in the game.
I know. What do you think I was doing? If you do that slow
Terrible
walk.
Things.
If you do that
doing
slow
terrible
walk.
Things.
Living my best life, Sam. What do you want from me?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Okay. Okay. Sorry. Do you have any other predictions before I jump?
I don't think so. Again, I think even though some of that stuff seems a bit like hype building, I do think that if it is a state of play and they're trying to be more conservative, and we know nothing big that we already know exists as an IP is happening in the next 6 months before like sort of April time next year, and this state of play is probably forecasting that 6 months, we'll see some cool second party, some third party stuff, some indie stuff, but I don't want to get too crazy. I think that if there is any more big announcements, like big announcement from PlayStation this year, it's probably more likely at the Game Awards. And even then, I feel a bit iffy on that. So we'll see. Tokyo Game Show could be it and could blow us out of the water. The state of play could be a lot stronger than we're anticipating. They could steal the limelight completely at Game Awards if they wanted to, which they could if they wanted to.
I just want one new thing, one new IP, please, just one.
And you're going to get, we know we're going to get far more than just one new IP out of the PlayStation studios over the next couple of years.
No, but I mean for this show.
I know what you mean. They just need to talk about one of them.
One of them. Pick any of them. Just that one new franchise will be enough to get me hyped, unless it's a first-person multiplayer.
Cory Barlog, Uwu.
Uwu.
I don't know why I invited that behavior.
Yeah, you started that. Okay, questions from our friends and listeners? Question mark. I'm pretty sure our friends listen. Tom said, question, extraction shooters have been miss after miss with only a few golden nuggets. What does Marathon need to make it stand out? He also had a state of play prediction, which is it doesn't happen.
Yeah. I mean, not impossible that the state of play doesn't happen, but I think enough people are saying that it is happening that I think something is going to happen. But we'll see. In terms of Marathon, I don't know. I think obviously with off the back of Concord, it's sort of hard to be optimistic about any of their ventures in live service. What we have said though over the past few weeks with the Bungie layoffs and all of that, and then Concord, is we said that though none of us here care about it, the Final Shape was, for all intents and purposes, the best Destiny content that there's been in probably several years, it seems. So it's very clear that Bungie are still capable of making excellent stuff. Obviously, again, like we said, how much of the talent that made that was cold, I don't know. But you would assume that they were probably savvy and not letting the best people go, you would hope. And adversely against Concord, one of the biggest gripes with Concord is that people think the art direction is bad and that the character designs are forgettable or bad. I think the aesthetics, at least from what we've seen from the one trailer of Marathon, is that it does have a more unique visual style to it.
I think that'll definitely help.
So that clearly, if we're talking about what Concord is struggling with, that has that going for it. Obviously, it's a different genre. So extraction shooters, I'm not going to proclaim to really know all that much about or at all be interested in. But in the same way that, I played the Concord beta and everything, and depending on whether they charge for Marathon or what, I don't know. That's all up in the air. They need to market it properly. They need to show you well in advance the gameplay, proper gameplay. They need to have deep dives. They need to have breakdowns of everything in it. And more importantly than anything else, I think they need to, again, at least a few months in advance, have multiple betas to let people jump in. And if the game is good, then you would hope word of mouth spreads to the next beta period, to the next beta period, to the next beta period. I would go over the top in beta periods personally, because that will allow you to serve a stress test, that will allow you to fix issues with the game, take on some feedback preliminarily, and it helps to get people's hands on with the game, and hopefully be far enough out that you can begin to spread good vibes if the game is good, which is something that Concord obviously didn't do. It had a beta a week or two prior to the game's release, and people were just outside of the beta looking at the art direction and everything and weren't that sold. And though people that played the beta and played the main game were like, it's actually a really solid, really fun game to play, you've lost the battle already there because people are disinterested. So do what you can to build interest. Show your game in ways that build interest, intrigue. You need to lure people in.
And then when you build a terrible game, no, I'm just kidding.
I mean, like whether it's a good game or not, if you manage to lure people in, that's half the battle.
Yeah. I think for me, they need to do something unique. And I know that that's hard when you're building a genre that already exists, but that's what always makes like that thing stand out, right? So if we're like, for example, we had obviously like we have like a bunch of battle royale games, and we see the ones that are successful are the ones that have a unique mechanic that changes the gameplay just enough to make that game stand out, like Apex, like Fortnite,
Yeah.
stuff like that. So I think that for me that's going to be, that's kind of what I think is hurting Concord a little bit, is that they don't have that thing.
Yeah. It's just a well-made another one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that they need to find something that's like, we need a well-made another one with an extra thing.
Yeah.
And I think that the art style goes a long ways because it is a unique art style, but I do think that they need that extra gameplay loop thing.
Yeah, because you can't say this is Rainbow Six Siege with a sci-fi skin on it. Like that's not going to be enough.
No, it's not.
And it seems the devs at Bungie aren't stupid, so
Yeah.
you would hope they know that, and are taking steps as much as they can under the management, which is a hurdle in and of itself, clearly, to do something special. Hopefully, I would love to see Concord again whenever we see it again. See Marathon again. Sorry, again whenever we see it again, and be like, I really don't care about extraction shooters, but that looks really cool.
Yeah.
I want to be lured in.
I want to be lured in.
I want to be won over. Win me over.
I think extraction shooters are always the one that's like, I think that it looks like such a fun genre, such a fun game loop, and I just haven't ever been lured in.
It also, I think there is maybe a incorrectly assigned stigma to it as well, because I feel like extraction shooters to some extent very easily fall into the trappings of being like sweaty, like traps where it's just tryhards, and it's completely beginner unfriendly and not great onboarding and all of that stuff. It's like either you were on the train when it started rolling or you are done for. You just can't get on it. So I would hope that, and that's kind of the same issue, obviously different genre, but that's the issue that Destiny has had for so long. So you would hope that with this next project that Bungie is working on, they are probably proactively taking steps to make sure that it is accessible at various skill levels. You don't have to be excellent and have comprehensive knowledge of every map and every corner and everything.
Yeah.
To be able to have fun playing it.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Well, then, and that's just good map design,
Yes.
Which
we'll see.
I did study in college, and it is incredibly difficult.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, release date for Lego Horizon Adventures is looking like November 14th. Excuse me, 14th.
Has that been officially announced? Or?
No, but it looks like there was a banner essentially that went public on, like, I think it was Nintendo's website. No, it was on PlayStation's website.
Okay.
I don't know if it's official or not, but that timeline does make sense for me.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I don't know if it's legit or not. Okay. Another question from Kevin. If the PS5 Pro was just a blog post, how would you react? I would say, thank God, I just needed an email.
I'd react with complete indifference as well, because I don't really care about it all that much. But they won't do that. They'll likely do what they did with the PS4 Pro, which was like probably at Tokyo Game Show, to be honest, where they will have a dedicated presentation that might have Sony come out, like he did for PS4 Pro, and talk about it for an hour. And it will be very dry and it will be boring for consumers, but for devs and everybody like that, it will be riveting. I imagine that's what they'll do. And if there is a state of play, there will be, a very short interstitial segment where they say that all of the games you're about to see will run best on PlayStation 5 Pro. Not in those
Yeah.
words, but
I mean, for the Pro, it's like, okay, so if they did that with a new console, let's say PS6, and they just did a blog post, I would be pissed off. Because it's like, I want to see, like, I love like that, like all those tech demos and like the new things that they did. I really love that. I'll eat it up. For an upgrade of an existing console,
you don't need fanfare for that.
no, I think I would be okay if they did like a YouTube video, like they did a blog post and then they did
Sure.
like a YouTube video that's like its own video, like 5 to 10 minutes long, and it's like, here's what's new and fancy, and it's like I can watch it if I want, but it's not part of something else. Because I don't want it to take 5 to 10 minutes up of a state of play.
No, I mean, Christ, they won't be doing a big blowout of the PSI Pro in a state of play.
Can you imagine?
They'll talk about it, depending on whether depending on whether the state of play is before or after Tokyo Game Show, I suppose. If it's before, then they might not talk about it, because I don't know exactly where PS5 Pro is being revealed at. Tokyo Game Show makes the most sense, obviously, but I don't know. So yeah, you don't need that much fanfare, and we wouldn't care however it's revealed. But I think that they will just put out basic, ads for it in YouTube videos, like we have seen time in memoriam, and then do a presentation at Tokyo Game Show. That's my assumption.
Okay. Alrighty. Well, last question here from Kyle. With the already bad reception of Fair Games, even though we haven't seen anything, do you think the failure of Concord will cause Sony to give up on multiplayer or stick to their story-based games?
No. I mean, with plenty, like, there's certainly the pullback from live service, and I imagine that will only be solidified based on how Concord has gone. But I don't think they're going to pull back further. I don't really like quoting people, but I can't help but quote Colin Moriarty, who I know is contentious to a lot of people, but I think he's very shrewd in terms of his perception of the industry. He made a very good allegory in that when you're at a casino, it's smart to place bets on every table. You don't want to put all of your chips onto one thing. So even though Sony has done things basically on one table for a long time, it's clear that there are not necessarily fully diminishing returns, but they do need to spread the field a little bit. And live service and multiplayer is just a more volatile space inherently. But that doesn't mean that PlayStation shouldn't be there. In the same way that people could say, well, Nintendo should stop making weird, quirky, niche games or stupid multiplayer party type games that might sell, a couple 100,000 copies max. So, well, maybe, but it still behooves them and their ecosystem to spread the field. And on top of that, you can look at Concord and how much it struggled, but that would be disregarding the, again, we've said this, astronomical success of Helldivers. So right now, Sony are 100% getting like mixed messages, because they haven't attempted live service and multiplayer for a very long time, and then their very first project out of the gate, Helldivers 2, is astronomical success, more than anyone there or Arrowhead were expecting, multiple times over. And they have made so much money off of that game. Whether the player base is alive or not now is irrelevant, because they've made their money. And obviously Concord has not done that. But I think just how successful Helldivers 2 was, there's no way that they aren't paying attention to what's happened with Concord, but still going to be lured by the dragon that is Helldivers 2. So I don't think there's a world where like Fair Games gets cancelled or anything. It could, but I don't think they'll do
Wouldn't
that.
that be kind of crazy though? Like, I don't know. I feel like that's such a crazy, like, especially since, I don't know. I understand that like Scalebound, like obviously is like a horror story, but I feel like they're too far in to Fair Games. Like, I think they're like way past even that point.
I mean, you say that. We've seen one trailer of it that had no gameplay. It was a conceptual trailer at best. It's from a new team that doesn't really have any fervent fans that would be outraged by the cancellation of a game. And depending on what their PlayStation's outlook is, they could look at Concord and see the like horrific sales that it's clearly had, and think that they might actually, and I'm not championing it, but from a business perspective, PlayStation might be looking at it and saying, we'd actually probably make more money back from writing this off, putting it as a tax write down, for the year. Because again, you saw the sort of passive disinterest and meh leading up to Concord coming out. And then what's happened with Concord happens. And from the jump, in the same way that Concord was sort of like, that's the same reaction that everybody had to Fair Games. And it's coming from, again, a team that nobody has any loyalty to.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Again, I'm not championing for games to be written off and for devs' hard work to be sort of thrown out. But is it better to do that, write it down, and have Haven shift over to do something else that might mean that there aren't really dire consequences for Haven if the game comes out and flops? I can make a case for both. And I don't know what headspace Sony and PlayStation are in right now. Because, again, it's chasing live service. They could be looking at Fair Games and think, we're not sure, but we weren't that sure about Helldivers 2. So what if Fair Games comes out and for whatever reason it connects and explodes? What if?
Yeah, I mean, I think they also have a lot more insight because they can see the game, right? Like, we can't.
Yeah.
They can just like walk into the studio and be like, show us what's up.
But I mean, but you could say the same about Concord. They could see Concord. And while Concord is a good game, and they clearly saw that it was a good game because they bought the team before they put out anything, it being good and it being successful are very different things. So they can look at all the progress they're making with Fair Games at Haven and be like, yeah, this is shaping up really well. It looks great. Really fun to play. You've got like content roadmap lined out. That's great. But again, all that matters is if it connects with the audience. If disinterest in a game is worse than hate for a game.
Yeah.
I think. Because there is no recovering from disinterest. So I don't know.
Listen,
I don't know.
I am disinterested in Fair Games.
That's what I'm saying.
Not that I'm the intended audience by any means, but
yeah. And I think like, whilst it hasn't been, again, we talked about this last week or the week before, whilst it hasn't been officially unveiled, I think the Horizon multiplayer thing will be safe. That they'll see that.
That's
through.
A totally different genre. I think they'll definitely see that through, especially with how
like
successful Monster Hunter is.
Yeah, and realistically, again, how successful the Horizon IP is. Like a lot of people don't care about it, but it sells better than most other PlayStation IP, including Last of Us and Ghost of Tsushima. So whether that's the general audience hard carrying as opposed to the hardcore, I don't know. But Horizon is a very, 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 very successful IP for PlayStation. So that will come through. I'm sure that will be fine. I also think, I mean, I guess we're in a tumultuous time. I don't know for sure. I would think, based on the pedigree and the optics and everything, Marathon is probably safe as well.
Yeah.
I mean, with how horrifically things are going at Bungie at the minute, maybe it isn't. Maybe they do, again, just decide, pull the plug now, hard pivot to something else, to Destiny 3 or a new IP that is not meant to be built as a live service, so that we aren't hedging all of our bets on it being successful and having a long life.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I mean, I think I would still say, like, I could see a world where Fair Games is canceled, but I just don't think that that's actually what's going to happen. I don't know. I guess we will see, because
we are in the nebulous. We're in the twilight zone. We have very little information.
we're in the love.
There will come a time where we have essentially all the information we need, but that is certainly not right now.
Yep. We're not in the need to know basis. That's okay.
I'm also going to say, because I think there is a misconception, and I will just keep hammering the point home, there are so many, the vast majority of future games from PlayStation are the single player stuff that you know and love. Like, it is. The single player titles still, even with this live service push, vastly outweigh the multiplayer live service stuff.
And I think it will be that way forever, because I think if that changed, then PlayStation wouldn't be PlayStation anymore. They would be Xbox.
Well, no, I just think that something would have gone horrifically wrong with PlayStation as an entity at large for them to pivot away from the thing that, one, they are very good at doing, they know that they're good at doing, and still makes the money.
Yeah.
Like, even though people say, oh, margins and stuff, at the end of the day, it still is making them money. It's just not making them as much money as they'd like to see, because it's all about growth. So as long as those things still make them money, and they're going to still make them money, they'll still be making the single player games.
Yep.
So don't panic.
I'm panicking. Enough disco.
Yeah. Before we round out, though, Bree, I very sneakily retrieved it because I forgot.
Yes. We have an eBay haul, you guys.
Only one thing.
It's still
it's what I have dubbed the heist of the century, and I am a bit baffled that I managed to do it, but I will show you what it is now. This is going to massively underwhelm, because it's a niche thing, but may I present to you this beauty right here?
Oh, wow.
So this is,
that's fancy, is what that is.
Very clearly a Helghast replica helmet from Killzone. This was part of the Killzone 3 collector's edition, but for those that know, if you know, you know, these eyes don't light up.
Okay.
So why are my eyes lit up?
Some sort
I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because I'm going to turn them off to save the battery. There you go. There was a limited collector's edition of Killzone 3 that was never available for purchase. It was not for sale. There were 1,000 units made worldwide, and they were given away to press, to media outlets, and a handful were won in like giveaways and contests that PlayStation held at the time. Yeah, and I've got one.
That's incredible.
The reason I say it was the heist of the century, I'm going to put them back on because they look better for the camera. The reason that I called it the heist of the century is because I was just perusing eBay, as I have been known to do these past few months. And I like, memorabilia. I like having at least one big cool thing for most of the franchises that I love, whether it's games or TV or film, whatever. Got a Grogu up there, obviously. Venom statue, yada, yada, yada. So I was like, well, I got the little resistance thing a few weeks ago, if you remember that. Little resistance figure. That was cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, Killzone. That'd be cool to have something for that. And I remembered that they did these helmets. I was like, well, you could probably get one of those relatively cheaply. And I looked at the listing, and this listing said light up eyes. It's like, well, that's strange, because the eyes don't light up. So I messaged him and I was like, so is this a custom thing that you've done? Have you augmented it? Have you retrofitted it so that the eyes light up? And he's like, no, I didn't retrofit it. I'm pretty sure all of them light up. It's just that the other listings don't show them with their eyes lit up. And I was like, how much are you asking for? Oh, you're asking for that little. Okay, yeah, okay, I'll take that one. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Sam, just for context, you guys, Sam literally wouldn't even talk about what he got because he didn't want to jinx it. He said, I want it in my hands before I say anything.
I didn't want to step on the rake and cause something to karmically go wrong. But yeah, it's here. It's real.
Wow.
I am amazed, like baffled, really, because it's just pure happenstance that I stumbled across it in the first place. And it's all like proper, like you can't see it, but the bands holding the goggles on are like the proper fabric-y stuff that you get on goggles. These are all squishy tubes. Obviously the eyes light up, and you can't wear it because it's only a small thing, but you can take the helmet off, and this stand that it's on was to hold the art book and the game, but obviously it's just the helmet that I purchased. So yeah,
Congrats. That's such an incredible find.
A brand new lovely addition to my collection.
Within the next month or so, I should be also doing a haul, you guys. I'm very excited about it for the Outer Wilds.
Oh,
Sam just on camera.
I wish I could join you, but like I said, those shipping fees were horrific.
Crazy.
Okay, so yeah. I will vicariously live through you as you unbox that.
Yeah.
What is the thing that they blacked out that said it's from another universe? What is it? I
don't know. I'll know soon. They said that it's launching Q3, and they consider Q3 to end in September.
Yeah.
So, or shipping in Q3, I should say.
I will wait with bated breath. Do you know what my prediction is? It's going to be like a small handheld instrument.
That would be so incredible.
Like I think it will be like
or like a music box that plays all of the.
Maybe a little music box that plays like the Travelers theme, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be cool. But I think it might be like if they're going cheap, it could be something as simple as like a kazoo. But I would love for it to be like an engraved harmonica or something.
Guess we'll see.
With the Outer Worlds logo on
it. It's like an announcement for the next game.
It's an exclusive code that nobody else can play
Outer
with.
Worlds 2.
God damn it.
Outer Wilds. Why did I say that?
I wish.
Okay, whoever named those games back to back, please knock it off.
Yeah.
Anyways, exciting times, you guys. I have a lot of special editions coming in, mostly books that nobody will care about but me. But some video game stuff, so I guess we'll see.
And lots of games on the horizon, just generally in the next couple of months.
Pun intended. Because this is a PlayStation podcast. Thanks for listening, you guys. We love hanging out with you. please feel free to leave comments for us. Join our Discord. We do have our Extra Life. If you guys are patrons, you know that we've already started planning our Extra Life stuff. So yeah, there's a donation link in the description. If you want to donate early, that would be really cool. I think that's everything. See you. Oh wait, where can people find you, Sam?
Anywhere and everywhere at Samhini, Heaney.
You can find me at Fabulous Brianna, FABULAST BREANNA. Have a lovely week. Bye.
Bye.